Okay, so this is going to be our notes on macromolecules, the introductory notes for this module. And you may see the word up there right now in the notes. It says organic compounds. But if you remember, in biology we're talking about living things. And these are all the compounds. There's macromolecules. There's large molecules that make up living things. If you're not thinking about what macro means, kind of think about its opposite word for this, and that would be micro. Micro is talking about really small things. You need a microscope to see them. Microbiology is studying the bacteria you can't see with the human eye. You need a microscope. And macro is large, things that you can see. And you see here this acronym, Sponge Cafe. This is just all these letters that represent elements in the periodic table that make up the main elements that make up living things. And you see the S stands for sulfur, P for phosphorus. And if we were to look at a periodic table, and close this, you don't go to one, there's one here, we would see where they are. And circled in here for you. We have S sulfur, E phosphorus, O is oxygen, O is nitrogen, C is carbon, H is hydrogen, C is calcium, and iron, T. Okay. See, most of them are on this right-hand side here over here. They're non-metals. Few of them are metals. Most are non-metals. But these are elements. They're single. They're pure, a lot of people call them. We try to label them. They only have, like nitrogen only has nitrogen atoms. Carbon only has carbon atoms. And what happens is you take these and you combine them. So if we took hydrogen, we combined it with oxygen, and you had two hydrogen and one oxygen, you would get H2O. But let's say you had carbon, and you had another hydrogen again, and over there, you get CH4, which is methane. But those are simple. There's only like two different elements in it. And there's only, 3 total in water, 5 total in methane. They're not very big. But you can also get some really large ones using these guys. An example of that would be C6, H12, 6. It's glucose is what it is, but it has 24 different elements that combine. Not 24 different, 24 3 different elements, 24 total atoms that come together to form this compound. So since there's 24, it's getting pretty large. And a lot of times, even with these macros, you'll have several glucose atoms attached to each other and make them very large. These are very important to living things. So if we go back to our notes here, and let me put this revealer back up. Back to our notes. And 9 basic elements, periodic table. And these compounds form due to attraction. It's either through covalent bonds, which is the sharing of electrons, or ionic bonds, which is where one element steals electrons like the other. They then become ionic or charged, and then a lot of times when one is stealing one off the other one becomes negatively charged, the other one becomes positively charged, and they form a compound. So covalent is sharing, ionic is stealing and forming ions. Okay, so we have these macromolecules. These are large, and most of these are carbon-based. There's 4 main ones we're really concerned with for this module. They are carbohydrates, which also are known as saccharides. There used to be a sweetener called saccharin that they used to use for diabetics, and it's not on the market anymore, but they're called saccharides. And if they're a single saccharide, they call them a monosaccharide. If it's a double, they call it a di. And more than that, it's a polysaccharide. A good example of a mono would be glucose, C6H12O6. A di would be sucrose, like your table sugar, and a polysaccharide would be starch. These carbohydrates are used for They form rings, but they're used for instant energy. The body uses them to create energy. No matter what you do, whether you move your arm, you're jogging, whatever action your body does, or even moving particles from across a membrane, it requires energy. So the body has to get that from somewhere. The main place it gets it is from carbohydrates. And these rings here, what it's talking about here, you have these different shapes, but they're circular in structure. So here we have one that has an oxygen here, and then it has these little points of this little pentagon. And each one of these points is a carbon. This would actually be fructose. And you also have another one right here. Okay, there's an oxygen right here, but then the rest of these guys are carbons. Look at this one. This is your glucose right here, but it has this hexagon shape, and these are all rings that are circular in structure. Circular. But they all have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. That's really what they have. CHO. So that's your carbohydrates. Let's just keep going here. And then go to the next page. Next thing we have are lipids. Lipids can be fats or oils. Let me add the oil thing here. So oils. And depending on what they are at room temperature. So if they're a solid, like Crisco oil, it's not really an oil actually, it's a fat, and it's a solid room temperature. And sometimes like cooking oil, like Wesson or whatever it is, that's a liquid at room temperature, so that's an oil. Lipids, their main function is energy storage. That's why they drive people crazy. Because if you use too much, you eat too much sugar, the body then takes that sugar and stores it in the form of triglycerides. Just to have that term. For later use. These triglycerides are these long chains of carbons attached to something called glycerol. And they have many carbons in them. Just it's long chain. Okay? A lot of people get them around their midsection. The body stores them in certain places, depending on your genetic makeup. Some people have a harder time with it. We're not going to go into why that is. But energy storage is a huge function of lipids. Also for waterproofing, such as your fingernails and such. But also what these these guys do are their membrane. They form membranes. They form the outer structure. They kind of look like this. They have this phosphate with their head, and then they have this tail. The phosphate, and they have this triglyceride tail. And the membrane, your cell membrane, all cell membranes are made up of these guys. So we're going to clear this here actually. I'll draw you a little bit of a picture. So they kind of look like this. Get my pen to work correctly. You should really look in the book and make sure you get a picture of these guys. They have this like, this would be your membrane, just goes on forever. Okay, and they're hydrophobic on the inside and hydrophilic on the outside. So they're like water, and they can have water here, and then they can have water inside, but no water here. Okay, and they help kind of protect the inside of whatever the membrane is. Okay, like the cell especially. Think about it. Like the cell has some water in it, but it doesn't allow an unlimited amount of water, and it kind of controls what goes in and out. We've talked about cell movement already, how that occurs. You have proteins and such within this layer that allows for transport. But a kind of a big important function of lipids, membranes. They form the outer layers of membranes, so keep that in mind. Keep going though, on the nucleic acids. These guys are pretty important too. They store all the genetic info. It's what their main function is. And all your traits, so whether you have brown hair, green eyes, you're really tall, maybe you're slender, maybe I don't know, you have long fingernails, whatever. You have thin fingers, whatever your traits are, that's controlled, determined by the nucleic acid, the DNA that you have. And then traits also though have to be passed on. So like when offspring are formed, nucleic acid is involved. Nucleic acids are involved in transporting those new traits to the new living thing. And DNA and RNA are very similar. These nucleic acids really have three main types of compounds. They have phosphates. Kind of similar to the guys we were just talking about, lipids. So they have phosphates, they have carbs, and then they have nitrogen bases. The nitrogen bases really form your genetic makeup. Depending on which nitrogen bases you have, that determines your traits and what order they're in. We'll go into that later when we go into genetics. But nucleic acids is another important macromolecule that we're going to look at. The last one is our proteins. Proteins have several functions, such as regulation. Homeostasis, the body likes to keep things relatively stable. They do that through regulating various processes and chemical reactions and such. And proteins are involved in that. Also, they help form new structures. So many of the structures in your body are formed from proteins. And they also help transport certain chemicals to the body as well. A basic protein is called an amino acid. This is a basic protein. Okay, there's about 22 or so that make up humans, the body of humans. Some ones you might know are tryptophan. There's a lot of turkey meat has in it, makes you tired. There's a lot of different ones. But proteins. And proteins have different types of structures. They're kind of like railroad cars. Like you have an amino acid, like the AA here, and it's joined to another amino acid, and it's joined to another amino acid. And you join these together, and they will call this like a peptide. Okay? Peptide. There's a lot of different words for these guys. Peptide. And then the bond that joins them is called a peptide bond. It's called PD. Okay. And these can be very, very long, short, whatever. But depending on how long they are, they then form these different types of structures where they fold over each other. Like this kind of beta sheet it's called. They have this alpha helix where they circle around. Then you can take an alpha helix and attach it to a beta sheet and form these various complex structures. But those are proteins. They have a lot of different amino acids linked together. Each amino acid has like a carbon. There's like a carbon, it's a basic structure. Let me show you, actually. Okay, so we have a carbon, we have a nitrogen over here. There's some hydrogen, I'm not going to show you that. There's this R group, there's a carbon, some over here, and then it has something attached here. But this determines what the amino acid is. All the other ones are the same. And this is CH. And then you have another one of these, another amino acid here. Okay, the same structure, I'm just skipping it. But this R group, and they all have R groups, that determines the amino acid that it is. And we're going to learn in genetics and how these proteins are made in much more detail. Just know, amino acid, a basic, it's a single protein that forms with other amino acids to form a much larger protein. And but that's your 4 macromolecules. Hope you got some good information out of that. And let me know if you have any questions, if you're struggling with anything. I'd love to talk to you and encourage you for whatever needs to be done. But definitely keep in touch. Let me know if you have any questions on notes. Check out the, I try to add the Khan Academy notes as well. They're very good, probably better than mine. But make sure you're using all your resources, following the links, and getting everything done and studying for your tests before you take them. All right, talk to you later.